Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brent Venables, the Oklahoma Sooners continue to work their way through fall camp. Late Wednesday night, we get another scrimmage. Waking up Thursday morning, the overwhelming feedback that we are getting from the scrimmage is that the offense dominated. And we haven't said those words about an Oklahoma fall camp in a really dang long time. And for if you're an Oklahoma fan, look, if you're a glass half empty Oklahoma fan, you probably point to the defense and say, what's going on the defensive side of the football? Look, the way I look at it, dominant defensive line. I think a really good linebacker room. I think a secondary that has some pieces emerging during fall camp with Brent Venables running this thing. Like I would be stunned if Oklahoma does not have one of the better defenses in the SEC, which leads me to talk about this offense and say maybe the step that we're going to see this unit take is not just a small step in the right direction. Look, the Oklahoma is going to get better on offense. One, they can't really get worse, but when you get the quarterback right and you get the play caller right, you're going to take a step. The question was, how big is that step going to be? It sounds like that step could be a lot bigger than what we thought a couple of weeks ago. And the thing that fires me up the most is not John Mateer having a good scrimmage. You know, the Oklahoma fans who've been rocking with the boys all off season long know my concern regarding this Oklahoma offense has zero to do with John Mateer. I know he's a good quarterback. I know he's a difference maker at the quarterback position. The biggest thing I want to get into is the offensive line sounded like it had one of the best practices they've had. The wide receivers continue to step up, and it seems like at this point, every other practice, it's a different pass catcher making some noise. I look at this wide receiver room and say it's deeper, and I expect it to be much better than what it was in 2024. Those were the questions we had. You know, how good are they on the offensive line and how good are the pass catchers? Do we have enough pieces around John Mateer for John Mateer to be successful in the 2025 year? I think we still have to see it to believe it. You are hearing fundamentally different things than we heard 12 months ago about this Oklahoma offense. Want to get into some of the names that stood out the most, why it excites me before we get into it, as always. To the Oklahoma fans, appreciate you guys, man. Y'all know how fired up I am for this football team going into 2025. Y'all know I'm also a Michigan fan, so I'm keeping an eye on Oklahoma pretty dang closely. Been a blast talking this football team. Many of y'all been rocking with the boys for a very long time. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, number one, it's been the storyline for me all off season long. Is this offensive line actually improved? If so, how improved is it? First takeaways, it's a better unit, right? I mean, it is hard to imagine the Oklahoma offensive line not getting better. The thing that stands out to me is even with some of the injuries that Oklahoma has had to deal with during fall camp, specifically at the tackle position, you have Derek Simmons nursing a concussion, you have Jake Taylor nursing a concussion, and Jacob Sexton, which is insane. You got three tackles all with the same injury. Derek Simmons has been a guy for Oklahoma. You know, really ever since he stepped foot on campus, going back to the winter and spring, the confidence has grown that he can be a quality starting right tackle for Oklahoma. Then you look at the left side of it and say, it sounds like Jacob Sexton stringed together one of his first healthy spring practices, carried that momentum going into fall camp. It sounds like there's some confidence with Jacob Sexton in terms of what he can be for Oklahoma at left tackle in 2025. You heard really good things about Logan Howland last night. You continue to hear really good things about Mike Fasusi. When I look at it and say, look, we still need to see it before we believe it, but the depth of this offensive line, specifically at the tackle position, is night and day different from what it was 12 months ago. And that was really the big problem with Oklahoma is, yes, it was a bad offensive line, period, but it wasn't very deep. So when you started having some of the injuries that took place for Oklahoma, it went from bad to really, really dang bad awfully quick. I'll look at it and say, you kind of like where Oklahoma is sitting with the depth. And now we just need guys to emerge and really solidify them as, you know, the best five offensive linemen, the starting guys going into 2025. Here's the other thing. Sounds like they ran the football well too. What's the best way to take a little bit of pressure off your offensive line and pass protection? Hey, run the football. Avoid sitting in these third and long, second and long, obvious passing situations where you get some really good SEC edge rushers pitting the ears back and getting after your tackles. The best thing you can do for this offensive line, run the football better. John Mateer going to help you do that. But it sounds like we're moving some bodies off the line of scrimmage and getting the run game going. I don't need the run game to be elite, but I can't have it be as bad as it was in 2024. You run the football and you get some more guys stepping up on this offensive line, feel pretty good about what this unit can be in 2025. Now, we're probably not really going to know until week 2 against Michigan. We're hearing different things than we heard 12 months ago for Oklahoma in fall camp. Second storyline, man, young talent in the wide receiver room. And it's a really, when you look at this wide receiver room, it's a unique combination of portal additions, veterans, and young talent. It sounds like the young talent really started to make some noise last night. I want to mention Elijah Thomas right off the bat. Oklahoma's got some freshmen that they go and play. We talked about Mike Fasusi. I think Mike Fasusi at some point during the 2025 year is going to factor in for Oklahoma. Go back to the cornerback room on the defensive side of the football, a guy like Cortland Guillory. We've talked about him all fall camp. Elijah Thomas, this kid, he's really fun. Not only is he 6 foot plus, around 200 pounds, 10-7 guy in the 100-meter dash, he's an elite jumper. Go back to his high school film. This kid is extremely, extremely explosive, really dynamic with the football in his hands. Why does that matter? Well, look at the Ben Arbuckle offense. What does Ben Arbuckle love to do on the offensive side of the football? He loves to scheme his guys open and get the football to them in space. You got a guy in Elijah Thomas who can be a difference maker with the football in his hands. And I'm looking at him saying, I know what Deion Burks can do when he's healthy with the ball in space. I know what Isaiah Satanga can do when he's healthy with the ball in space. Now we got another guy in Elijah Thomas emerging as a dynamic playmaker when you can get him the football in space. That should fire a lot of Oklahoma fans up. And then the other guy, Ivan Carrion. And my personal favorite, I've been banging the table for this kid for a very long time, really since he came out of high school. It's been kind of a quiet spring practice and fall camp for him. I still think he can help Oklahoma and kind of represents a different kind of pass catcher. You got a lot of different skill sets in this wide receiver room. You got some big bodies. You got some yards after the catch guys. You got some really good route runners. Ivan Carrion is that big body that can work the boundaries, that can work the middle of the field. It sounds like we got upwards of 10 guys that we trust to make some plays for us at the wide receiver position. That's as top heavy as Oklahoma was last year with guys like Deion Burks and Nick Anderson. As much as those guys excited us last year, the depth was a problem. And when Nick Anderson and Deion Burks weren't on the football field, we just didn't have guys that we trusted. We didn't have guys that could make plays. Offensive line sounds to be hitting its stride. Wide receiver position, you got a combination of transfer portal additions. The thing that I would say is I think Oklahoma feels like they hit on some of their transfer portal additions. You also have guys like Zion Kearney, Ivan Carrion going into year 2, Elijah Thomas going into year 1. You also sound like you got some young talent that you trust in the room as well. More talented and deeper on the offensive side of the football. And I'll say this, the last X factor, and because John Mateer gets so much of the media buzz, I feel like we don't talk enough about this. Ben Arbuckle is the ultimate X factor when it comes to this Oklahoma offense. I think it's going to be night and day in terms of the creativity that you see from this Oklahoma offense. And what really excites me is you got a quarterback like John Mateer that what you love most about John Mateer is there's nothing you can't ask this kid to do. You can ask him to get involved in the run game. You can ask him to get outside the pocket. You can ask him to throw off platform, which is one of the better skill sets that he brings to the table for Oklahoma. And he's just a difference maker. Even when Ben Arbuckle's not perfect calling up a play, John Mateer can make you look perfect with his ability to extend plays, give you that second play. I am growing confidence with this Oklahoma offense. Now, let's talk about this Oklahoma defense real quick. The thing I will start with is you continue to hear really good things about David Stone putting it all together. Really big news because I look at Oklahoma and say, if Oklahoma is a top 10 defense in the country, which I think is very, very feasible, it's going to start with this defensive line. And we kind of know what our Mason Thomas is, but I'm looking at the middle of the defensive line. So Jaden Jackson sounds like he took the step. We know what Dominic Williams is. Grayson Holland's one of the better pass rushers from this position that you see in the country. We're waiting on David Stone. Like, is David Stone going to be a guy that can make an impact, and not just an impact? Can he make a big impact on Oklahoma in the 2025 year? It's consistent feedback from David Stone, which is different from last year. Look, last year we heard the flashes of David Stone, right? But it was never consistent. Every time you open up fall camp or even go back to spring practice, it's like we're consistently having an impact in practice. We're making our presence known. The consistency is what stands out to me about David Stone, which we did not hear 12 months ago. And then the other name, hey, Peyton Bowen at the safety spot. I don't know if he starts. I mean, there is a insane amount of depth between the cheetah and safety position. Like Robert Spears Jennings probably not going to lead the football field much. You've heard phenomenal things about a guy like Reggie Powers. Michael Boganowski is a kid that I think the staff loves. And Peyton Bowen, here's the thing with Peyton Bowen. Here's my pitch on not to sell your stock on Peyton Bowen just yet. He really, really talented kid, and I will remain with that take. Like, this is a kid that is not only really talented, but his understanding of the sport is very, very high. Dealt with some injuries, but just as importantly, I mean, the first 2 years he's been on campus for Oklahoma has dealt with two different defensive coordinators. And so there's not been a ton of continuity for this kid. And then you couple that with the injuries and not being able to stay on the football field at times. Maybe that's why you haven't seen him breaking out yet. It sounds like he's healthy. It sounds like he's on the field a little bit more, maybe a little bit more continuity on the defensive side of the football. Brent Venables knows him. Brent Venables knows his skill set, where he's most comfortable. That's another guy that can make an impact for Oklahoma in 2025. I struggle to look at this roster that's in front of me, the depth chart. I look at the two deep. I struggle. And then you combine that with Brent Venables calling the defense and say, it's hard for me to envision Oklahoma's defense not being one of the better units in this conference, but also in the country. And if we're hearing that stuff about the offense, this team's dangerous. And we've said it all year. Like, I don't think many people realize how dangerous Oklahoma is. If a few things come together, specifically on the offensive line, this team can make a lot more noise than I think a lot of people appreciate. It's kind of what we're hearing in fall camp. I think that this was the most exciting fall camp intel episode that we've done for Oklahoma in a very long time, because it shows you how good this football team can be. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.